Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from today. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome you all to this webinar entitled Faith in Action, which is going to focus on empowering youth skills for peace and development, hosted by the UN Environmental Program, Faith for Earth Coalition's Youth Council, and the Children and Youth Major Group 2 UNEP. My name is Christian Knoll, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the UNEP Faith for Earth Youth Council for the term 2024 to 2026, as well as the moderator of this panel for the significantly shorter but hopefully no less enjoyable term of the next 90 minutes. A little bit of background of why we're gathering today. In 2014, the United Nations General Assembly declared today, July 15th, World Youth Skills Day. And this day has been set aside in the calendar to celebrate the importance of equipping young people with the skills needed to address the challenges of today and tomorrow. This year, the theme is Youth Skills for Peace and Development, and this underscores the crucial role that young people play in peace building and in conflict resolution globally. With over 1 billion people who are of the young age, between 15 and 24, alive globally, as well as the severity of the challenges we face as a global society, equipping young people with the skills to meet these challenges is a vital task. But when we're pursuing this mission, we cannot forget that 85% of young people globally claim belonging to a religious community. So faith must be a part of this conversation as well. And our mission at the UNEP's Faith for Earth Youth Coalition is to mobilize faith and interfaith youth engagement in intergovernmental processes related to the climate, specifically by promoting training, capacity building, and peer-to-peer learning. We're delighted, therefore, to host this panel comprising young faith leaders advocating for the protection of Earth in their faith communities and beyond. And in this webinar, Faith in Youth Skills 2024, we are seeking to inspire collaboration and recognition for the invaluable contributions faith-based institutions and organizations make in empowering the next generation. In this webinar, we're going to benefit from the insight of 5 incredible guest speakers who will highlight faith institutions and organizations that work to support youth in skills development, entrepreneurship, and sustainable growth. And the way this webinar will proceed is we will begin with a keynote presentation followed by a panel featuring members of the Faith for Earth Youth Council, who will speak about their work and how it relates to the development of green skills in young people. And this will then be followed by an interactive question and answer time for as long as that goes, and then we will wrap up and get on with our days. So now I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming Vicky Aridi, who is the Youth Advisor for the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, which is a collaboration between the ILO, UNICEF, and UNEP. She is also the Program Manager of the YEO 2030 at Making Sense International and a UNICEF Generation Unlimited Global Board member. Vicky will speak to us about the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, which is an excellent example of how government, employers, youth, and educational institutions can work together to develop the skills necessary for facing the environmental challenges of our time. So without further ado, over to you, Vicky. Thanks so much for joining us today.
No, thank you so much for having me and for that introduction. I know it's Monday, so if you're like me, Monday is usually that day of the week. So before I dive into the presentation on the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, I'd just like us to step back a little bit and hear some of your thoughts. So you've probably been in many conferences or webinars like this, and you're always asked, what is a green skill? What is a green job? So today I'm going to leverage that and just ask all of us a question. From where you sit and having worked in this space, what does a green job mean to you? And if you don't mind putting it in the chat or a word that pops up when you think about a green job, that would be appreciated. I don't know if you're able to drop anything in the chat, but you should be. Okay. So I see leadership in sustainable projects. Thank you, Asmira. Yes. What word comes to mind when you say a green job or when you hear a green job? And as we go through the presentation, I hope it will give you some ideas or bring certain things to mind. So I'll dive into the Green Jobs for Youth Pact. What is this actually? So I'll take you back to Stockholm Plus 50, which was a few years ago. And the three UN agencies came together: ILO, UN Environmental Program, UNICEF through Generation Unlimited, and said, how can we work together to address the climate crisis and youth unemployment? As you know, by 2030, the green economy has the potential to create 24 million jobs. So the pact is really looking at three key things. One, creating 1 million new green jobs for young people, regreening 1 million existing jobs, and then supporting 10,000 green entrepreneurs with a multiplier effect. So just look at that and think about the potential. And then moving on, the pact is really anchored in three E's. The first one really looking at green education and skills. So how do you ensure that young people have the right skills to thrive in this economy? When you look at the statistics, only 1 in 8 people have the right green skills to be able to leverage the green economy for their own benefit. So looking at the different education institutions and working around that. The second one is really around employment and entrepreneurship. How can we support green enterprises to scale? How can we support the creation of new viable opportunities? And how can we look at the jobs that are really in the ecosystem and green them to create more opportunities for young people? And then looking at the third E, which is really around empowerment and youth engagement. So, what you'll keep hearing across the pact is that young people are not only just beneficiaries, but drivers throughout the process, a key partner, key pillar, and constituent across the spectrum of the pact. So beyond the three green E's, you may be wondering, what has been the pact's impact? And because there are three UN agencies, and today a lot of you are engaged with UNEP, I'll really hone into some of the impacts that has been driven by UNEP. And so remembering those three E's, starting with the whole aspect around capacity strengthening and green skills. So there has been a curriculum that has been developed focused around green jobs in sustainable tourism across Africa. And this curriculum is targeting also community-based organizations, MSMEs, and seeing how can they take advantage of green tourism opportunities. And then there has been within Asia a low carbon accelerator. And this accelerator was really focused on training young entrepreneurs, providing them with mentorship, and two enterprises that participated in the initial accelerator have received seed funding for their enterprises. There's also the aspect around dialogue with different stakeholders. So across the different regions in Latin America, Africa, Asia, there have been different dialogues focused on the circular economy, focused on inculcating green jobs across the policy documents that come out of the different UN engagements. So really across the pact, you can see that there's that move towards ensuring that young people get the required skills, get the required resources, and are really part of the policy and advocacy dialogue across the board. And so coming into Kenya, the three E's in action. So what we kept realizing, and this is just an example of the Kenyan context, is that one, young people were not being meaningfully engaged in this discourse when we talk about green jobs and skills. Two, data is quite fragmented when you look at this topic around green jobs and skills. And three, there's not a lot of coordination within the space. So everyone is doing their own thing in their own bubble, but not really from a coordinated perspective. So this took us to take a step back and start with a breakfast meeting where we brought different stakeholders together to start thinking, how do you want to shape the green jobs and skills development discourse in Kenya? Thereafter, there were 13 virtual consultations in three buckets, looking at skills development, enterprise development, and green finance, and bringing together the key stakeholders to answer key questions on matters that touch young people when it comes to those three buckets, and young people were driving parts of those conversations. And all this culminated in a Green Jobs and Skills Development National Workshop. And so for the workshop, what we're trying to do after those consultations, coming together to around four key aims, really to establish a green jobs skills hub that would bring together the different players in the ecosystem to look at what is the future of green skills within the country and what are the existing gaps? Number two, as you know, policy is a key driver, and without it, we can't move much. So, seeing how can we develop a national green jobs and skills development legislative coordination framework? And the third and the fourth is within the education sector, how can we ensure the TVETs, the higher education institutions, are working together around research, knowledge sharing, and collaboration. And the last piece, a Green Jobs Index, which would act as that tool to be able to track the number of jobs that are being created and see how the progress is happening across countries and facilitate learning. So two other quick examples I'll highlight, and please just do for me this when when it's almost time, because I know I can go on. And so two other points I would highlight is we recently launched a My Sustainable Living Challenge. And this was a challenge targeting university students where they could work together in groups to do small challenges that would serve as building their capacity on different ways they could make their lifestyle sustainable and contribute to a greener ecosystem. And so it's a challenge that's ongoing, and university students can come together, form groups, and take part in this challenge. And then just an example from Jordan with the pact. So now really focusing on adolescents and seeing how can they be part of the conversation. So 650,000 adolescents were trained on climate change, and this aspect has also been integrated into their curriculum. And you can see from the results what happened. That simple training being integrated into their curriculum. I mean, 7,000 trees planted, 10,000 kgs of waste recycled, local youth actions coming up. So just showing how critical education continues to be as that pillar. 2 minutes. Got it. All right. And so beyond that, we've also had different research and consultations with and for youth across the five continents, really looking at definition of green skills, shared understanding of this definition, and what do young people need to thrive in this economy. And of course, as I mentioned, I'm a youth advisor, and I'm not the only youth advisor. We're five others comprising of these constituencies, and we are key partners of the pact across the three E's. Okay. And the last thing in my last minute is how can you get involved? And there are two concrete next steps. So at the high level political forum, which this event will be happening, and it will also be virtual, and it will be an international green skills and green jobs for youth roundtable, bringing different players again, one to share the research outcomes that I mentioned earlier, and two to say how do we move forward this agenda globally. And the last bit is a commitment form, and this is something that's work in progress, and maybe at a later date we may collaborate with the Faith Council around this to see how can youth partners who are leading their own organizations commit their efforts towards the pact and work together with other partners. I had a question, but in the interest of time, I'll stop here. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions via the chat. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Vicky. That's fantastic. And yes, we'll have an opportunity for an interactive question and answer session once we hear the wonderful panelists who are up next. It's wonderful to hear reflections on the three E's and how important it is to empower, educate, and employ young people with the skills necessary for tackling the triple planetary crisis that we face. We now have the distinct pleasure of speaking with members of the Faith for Earth Youth Council who are doing these very things, starting with Halak Shah, who is one of our members and who works as a global digital solutions and energy transition sales consultant at Worley, and who has also been a volunteer at Srimad Rajchanda Mission, Dharampur, in their environmental care program for the last 3 years. And in this role, he leads and coordinates youth skills development based projects. So, Halak, over to you to describe how you implement this work in your work.
Thank you so much, Christian, and thank you so much for a beautiful discussion before. So, welcome, Jai Jinendra. We are from Srimad Rajchandra Mission, Dharampur, India. We welcome you to this beautiful initiative that is called Srimad Rajchandra Love and Care, under which we have a holistic program where we take care of 10 different types of care, and under each care, there are more than 10 projects running. So I'd like to take you to a deep dive on the environmental care initiatives of this organization. So how can faith-based organizations integrate skills development into the youth programs for a long-term status? So this is what we called the FEEL program, Faith for Earth Empathy Leadership Program, under which we actually built a curriculum looking at the need of sensitizing the youth between the age of 12 to 18 for environment and sustainability on the principles of empathy, envision, execute, as well as empower, in a way that the children feel excited to drive change, feel excited to challenge the status quo, and have a very knowledgeable as well as experiential affair. So these are the field children on their seed bombing site that you can see. All the children are making the field program. So some of the innovative approaches that we've taken, we've come up with this concept of cow dung bricks. And under the principle of Jainism, we believe in non-violence towards animals. So cow dung and mixing it with the local mud and some amount of lime actually gives us a formula for making a brick which is low cost, sustainable, absolutely zero emissions in the process of creating it, as well as sun dried. So what we essentially do is we prepare the batter, leave it to have an anaerobic digestion over 3 days, and cover it, and then have the people stomp over it and dance their lungs out for almost 30 to 40 minutes. So youth dance over this entire mixture and mix it well, post which they take it into molds and create these bricks. Now, these bricks are the ones that we are using for our upcoming animal hospital. So, in a way, we are creating circular economy in the entire process. So, this is what it will actually look like. Currently, the bricks are sun dried, and we've just started with basic landscaping features for the same. The next project is Solar Demi, where we've lit up more than 170 homes in a rural village. So, what we essentially did is we took the Solar Demi concept from Southeast Asia and we tried to make it permanent by adding a solar panel on top of it. There's also eco bricks, which is a furniture out of eco brick construction. So all these field students, they get involved with such novel concepts such as seed diyas, where they put seeds at the bottom of diyas which are lit during Diwali in India, and multiple such initiatives. So, through our School Connect programs, we have launched massive tree plantation drives, which have enhanced the students' sensitivity through games. Now, as you can see here, a seed ball is being planted with precision farming to increase the chances of its living. The main challenges that we are facing is there is lack of monetization or incentivization of any of the skills with environment, as well as the monetary value proposition and perception is very low in the environment. And the challenges can be overcome only when we can reach to maximum people, and that is through responsible consumerism, through case studies, through youth led initiatives at multiple places which see top down support along with bottom up startups. So this was the mega forestation drive we've done, and students have learned the basics of what all ingredients are needed for mixing it, as well as plant vaccination measures while doing this entire process. Also, we've come up with biopharmacy, which is Ayurvedic native plants which can be used as medicines and herbs for immunity building amongst areas which are struck with anemia. And the last but not the least, so government support, we've gotten a lot so far. We get all our seeds absolutely freely sourced from the government through rainforest officers. We get a lot of saplings through the Van Mahotsav scheme of Indian government. There are a lot of villagers and the headsmen of the villages giving us land for us to create rainforests and the tree protection efforts by actually painting the bottoms with red and white so that they stay protected for a longer time and are documented. So we thank you so much for bearing with us for 5 minutes, and over to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Halak. That's fantastic to hear about that initiative. Next up, we have Greshma Raju, who is a climate and peace educator with a focus on interfaith dialogues and environmental peace building, currently working as a community and fellowship manager at Our Clids Climate. She's the founder of EcoPeace Teen Cafe and is also a global council trustee of the United Religions Initiative. Greshma, please, you now have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine, and thanks everyone for hosting this wonderful webinar today. So, first of all, wishing you happy Youth Skills Day. And every day is an opportunity to learn something new. So let's start learning and transform ourselves for a better and sustainable world. So I'm from United Religions Initiative. It's a global grassroots interfaith organization working with people from diverse religious backgrounds to promote peace and justice. And I'm also the founder of EcoPeace Teen Cafe. EcoPeace Teen Cafe is also linked with URI as one of their cooperation circles. So I would like to take you to my work at EcoPeace Teen Cafe. Actually, we try to build a platform to facilitate connection among teenagers, and we are trying to uh, build more connections, and we are trying to give them more opportunities to learn like how to follow sustainable lifestyle practices. And we mostly focusing on community building, environment conservation, social justice, and peace building. So over the like we started in 2021. So over the years we did like almost 150 online events like webinars, mentorship, dialogues, and global summit, everything on online platform. And this year we started an initiative called Eco Peace Impact, Intergenerational Movement for Peace and Climate Action. So here we are trying to bring more intergenerational support, intergenerational dialogues, and also giving more opportunities for young people to have dialogues with experts, to learn and acquire more skills and more storytelling sessions. So these people, like young people, can have conversation with them to learn like how to follow sustainable practices in their daily life. So we start our action from planting a peace tree at home. So we advocate for planting more trees. And as we know, like we are trying to find solutions for our triple planetary crisis. So for solving this, we advocate for like start from planting trees at our homes, and then reach out to the families, neighbors, and communities to bring like more actions, like more climate actions, and bring the community together. So we believe in the value called collaboration. So in this era, we need like more collaborations. No one alone can solve any issue. So we invite all organizations, all humans, like all individuals to come together to protect our nature and protect our family. That's why we need like more green empowerment for like more fruitful youth engagement. So we every time when we talk with teenagers, every time when we talk with young people, we ask them to learn more about technical skills and green skills to come up with more innovative solutions. So as young people, we every time we are going through some kind of challenges, to overcome that challenges, we really need to acquire new skills and new knowledge for bringing up with more innovative solutions to solve our current crisis. So that's about my work. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you so much for this connections. And thank you and best wishes to all our young people to solve this uh, big crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grishma. Fantastic work staying on time there. Next up, we have Tiffany, who is a project specialist at the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, focusing on humanitarian collaboration, youth development, and UN engagement. And she has extensive experience running community-led projects and youth programs globally, and since 2022 has led the Ukrainian refugee relief in Poland. So please, Tiffany, over to you.
Hi, thank you very much for the time. So a little bit about Buddhist City Foundation. We are working in roughly 133 countries at the moment. So we work a lot with the youth, and my department is especially doing youth development. So raise two kind of examples of the green skills provision for our youth, and also to bring the community together. So this is a project that we've been doing in Mozambique, which, as you know, Mozambique is highly affected by the climate change that is happening around the world. So one of the green skills that we've been providing is training for our youth who are in the agriculture section with climate resilient crops. So having the skills to be able to build climate resilient crops. And through that program, actually, we've been bringing youth to also take part in the community, not just helping themselves, but actually going beyond that and helping the community. So we have developed community farms, which then the youth come in, they plant, and then this will then go into school feedings and other food programs that we have around the community. Part of the program as well is we have capacity building sessions and camps where we bring everybody together. We discuss kind of the challenges that they're facing. And through that, we have identified community leaders, may it be elders, who are able to pass down some of the indigenous skills in the community that have been slightly lost over time, that we are able to use in terms of greening. And actually, the youth have been developing upon these skills they have gained, and to be able to grow. This year, we are running an initiative where we have identified 15 leaders from Mozambique, and they will actually be traveling overseas to study on a scholarship. So the youth have identified projects that they want to be involved in when they come back into their community. So they will be doing their university degree, 2 years that are actually overseas, and then we have done an exchange with the local university where they'll do their last 2 years at the local ground while starting and doing innovation projects that they are very passionate about. Most of these projects are green skills. Some of them are in agriculture, some of them are in education, on climate and other areas. Other countries that we have been working on that okay, the slides are not working, but other that we've been working on is we last year in the US we ran innovations challenge. So in this innovation challenge, we asked members from around the community to put together a team. Every member needs to be between the age of 15 and 24, and they come up with a project that is for sustainability and the for the betterment of the world. And so last year we were able to identify groups, and through this we gave them not only some funding for their projects, but mentorship as well. So we had scientists and other very talented mentors that were able to guide them through the process of making sure that the projects come alive. So you're welcome to check out our website and to take a look at the projects. And through that, they were able to, we had phase one winners, which they would receive 5,000 USD in grants. And then like the final winner, which received 10,000 in grants. So that was a project that we were able to run. And through this project, we were actually able to follow on. And now they're still working towards these green innovations. One of the winners, actually, they were making an online platform to online platform which they were able to link people with the skill sets and then to be able to find jobs in the green industry. So thank you very much for the time, and feel free to connect with me. We'll be happy to hear from you all. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have Leanne D'Souza, who serves as the Executive Secretary of the Don Bosco Green Alliance, which is a global collective focused on environmental action within the Salesian Network. And she is an active volunteer with the Salesian Youth Movement, where she organizes Catholic faith-based programs for young people. Over to you, Leanne.
Christine, can you share the screen, the
Yes.
PPTs? Or I could do it as well. Yes, so I'm from the Don Bosco Green Alliance, and I'm going to talk about the network Don Bosco Tech Africa. It's an umbrella body of 117 Don Bosco TVET centers in 34 countries in Africa, and it is reaching out to over 40,000 youth annually to develop Africa's youth skills through efficient resource mobilization and management. So, because the TVET centers are a major supplier of the skilled workforce, DB Tech takes duty and responsibility to incorporate green skills within the curricula to prepare graduates for the workforce and the green economy. Next slide. Through the Green TVET initiative, Don Bosco Tech Africa has been engaging the youth in different themed initiatives, including the importance of green energy, PV, solar, and construction of biogas in climate change, mitigation, installation, use, and maintenance of these green energies. The other area they focus on is water and wastewater management, and then wastewater management. So with this initiative, DB Tech can facilitate the youth to prepare for a sustainable future, green jobs, and green economy as they acquire technical, vocational, educational, and training skills. So the Don Bosco Tech Africa has also, next slide, has also adopted green campus strategies which give learners theoretical and practical exposure to the different green skills as they learn and practice within the campuses. Next slide. After our learners have acquired green skills, as they go back to the community, they are expected to push forth and teach the community to adopt these best green practices as we achieve a green culture. Next slide. By incubating and inculcating a green culture within us, it is at this level that DB Tech is able to attain a technically skilled youth workforce and a community that is conscious of sustainable and environmentally friendly behaviors concerning the green economy for sustainable development. Don Bosco Tech Africa encourages and advocates the adoption and development of an educational model for sustainable development, greening the training content, greening technology, greening research, greening energy, better waste management, and better water and wastewater management. Next slide. It is therefore the responsibility and commitment as Don Bosco Tech Africa to develop proper and appropriate green skills among the youth for a better and sustainable environment and world, and work towards achieving SDGs 13, 8, 7, 4, and 1 while coming up with an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa.
Fantastic, Leanne. Thank you so much. That is brilliant. Well, thank you to all our panelists for sharing the skills and the experiences that they have had in implementing the three E's. I think we can all see how the three E's Vicky spoke about at the very beginning are manifested very, very obviously in the way that the work is being done across the globe. And it is also my pleasure to, following on from this panel experience, to just announce that the Faith for Earth Youth Council will be releasing a series of member spotlights highlighting this work in more depth, in which myself and my co-chairs will be interviewing members of our council, including the wonderful panelists here today, as well as some others, on how they are working in their work to develop green skills among young people. And we will be releasing those over the course of the next 2 weeks. So do stay tuned for updates on that. So thank you, Vicky. Thank you to all our panelists for a really stimulating and inspiring discussion. I'm sure there are many, many questions and follow-up comments within the audience. So I will now turn it over to any guests and members who are here watching, if you have any questions and or comments for our speakers. And you can submit these either through the chat, or I believe there's also an ability to ask them live. Perhaps while people think about what they're asking, I'm wondering if you could speak on the role of faith institutions in this. We've talked about intergenerational collaboration as well as the importance of education. Now, it's well known that faith-based communities control a lot of the educational institutions in this world, and about 50%. So how can faith leaders, many of whom tend to be on the older side, use these and take advantage of the skills among young people within their faith communities to foster intergenerational collaboration, particularly within educational institutions that they are responsible for managing? Perhaps we'll start with Vicky and then move on to the panelists as we, if you have any thoughts on that.
No, thank you. I mean, that's a very interesting question depending on the context. And so you asked how a faith-based institutions, leaders, positioned to participate in this agenda, especially when we look at skilling. So I think of it from a three-pronged approach. The first one, they can serve as one advocates. And I say advocates in the sense that in a lot of different communities, faith leaders hold certain respect and can be and are usually listened to by different members of the community. So them serving as advocates in those communities and really pushing the need for having, that inculcated into the curriculum is one way of doing so. The second one is that some of these faith leaders also have their own institutions. So there's one thing to advocate, and it's another thing to walk the talk. So how can they be as champions themselves, inculcating this green skills and green components in their curriculums? And the third part that I see faith leaders have a unique position is being the connector of dots. In a lot of communities, faith leaders, as I mentioned, continue to be held in such respect. So how do these leaders then come and play the role of breaking those silos and connecting the different players, even across different faith institutions, to move forward the agenda together? So from my perspective, those would be the three buckets.
Thank you so much. Do any of our panelists have any reflections on the role that faith leaders can play within these discussions, particularly within their faith institutions? Yes, Greshma.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Christine. And I think faith leaders can play a significant role in actually in educating and also like providing support and creating space for young people to come together and act. So I'm always a kind of advocate for involving faith leaders in climate actions, and I always share that it's really important to find inspiration from the Holy Scriptures. So the Holy Scripture, like from the starting to end, we can see like so many symbols from the nature and how the Holy Scripture describes the nature. So faith leaders can communicate this message with the followers like more meaningfully, and also especially young people, like they have like different platforms to educate them, like small kind of education institutions within their faith communities. So it's essential. And also when we reflect on when we had disaster, we can see there is like a immediate attention coming from the faith leaders and offering support, and every faith community is coming together during a disaster. But we actually need more work before before the disasters, or like when we talk about climate action, we need that unity among the faith leaders and faith communities to
Mhm.
to avoid such situations and bring like more effective actions. Thank you.
Absolutely. So there was a follow-up question to Vicky's comments. Was there faith-based engagement at the Kenya National Green Jobs Conference? And if not, what were the barriers to that? So we'll
No,
start with
thank
Vicky and then we'll go to Halak. Yeah.
no, thank you, Asmira. And maybe just to share top of mind, the faith-based engagement organizations were not as prominent during the conference, and those who were present were mainly those that were through NGOs that are anchored in faith-based institutions, but not as prominent. And I think some of the barriers to that is one, the perception. So for a lot of people, when you talk about faith and climate action, people tend to look at them in silos. So I think there's still room for more advocacy on that. Number two, even when you go to a lot of the climate action circles, it's still very rare to see a lot of faith-based organizations at the table. So I think there still needs to be that creation of space for more faith-based institutions to be able to be at the table because of the critical role they play. The third thing, and this is a big question that tends to come up, where do you easily find the faith-based organizations that are working with climate action within a particular space who can be able to add value? And so how do we also ensure that through the Faith Council at UNEP, how can we effectively work with the Green Jobs for Youth Pact such that when these opportunities arise, we can be able to tap into each other's resources? So those were some of the barriers I think that really contributed to that.
Thank you very much. Samson, you've had your hand up for a little while. What I'll call on you now. Are you there? You unable to unmute? If not, then feel free to type your question in the chat and I will pick it up from there. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for that, Halak, you had your hand up a little while ago. Maybe you can speak to a little bit more about how these themes resonate with your work.
So it was beautiful to put this question up, and I loved Greshma's and Vicky's views on the same. So definitely, faith leaders are the ones who've helped us so far. I feel they've contributed a lot already so far, and as she rightly said, that it's also through scriptures and the holy texts, etc. So I'll just talk about one personal experience that I had when I was discussing about the environmental care program with our Gurudev, Puja Gurudev Sri Rakesh ji. He happened to give me a very powerful slogan. He said that if you want the youth to understand what the environment is, you need to get them to disengage from their gadgets or disconnect from their gadgets, eventually connect to nature and environment through volunteering, and that'll help them connect to their inner nature or their conscience or their spirituality. So that's where all faiths come down to. That's where we all can talk in a common language irrespective of where we come from. We share one planet, similar resources, and similar consciences. So that's the first. Second is it's so important to inculcate the values of responsible consumerism, because the youth today, because of such cheap alternatives available, they don't even realize what they are actually investing in or contributing to, or what are the side effects. So we need to bifurcate between the need, the greed, and the luxury aspect of what every single individual needs right at the nascent stage or the early stage during their upbringing. If they get the awareness and the wit to be able to differentiate between this, it automatically evolves into a beautiful, environmentally conscious and aware soul that helps in bringing about changes. And the third and the last one is that faith leaders are aggregators of ideas. So, what I have seen with Gurdev is that he always asks me to make whatever I'm teaching or whatever we are initiating as a project very much of fun. And that's when we added the stomping part. We made people dance on cow dung and then create them into bricks. So he said that then even banana peel, there was this other initiative. We had just put two plastic sheets and kept banana peel, dried banana peels in between, and asked people to dance on it and do aerobics for 3 hours. And after 3 hours, we showed them, oh, you contributed to making a fertilizer just subconsciously. You didn't even know that you did this. So adding it to your yoga that you do on a daily basis, all these small little things help it become a part of the daily lifestyle. Not something long term, not something you do on the weekend, not something you do at your school. You can do it yourself as a prayer. The way you pray to God, you pray to nature, pray to the environment, and pray to Mother Earth. So these are the three ways that I see faith leaders can contribute, and open to hearing many more.
Thank you, Halak. That's powerful testimony of how that can happen. We'll come back to Samsung. I see you've put your hand down, but is there any are you able to unmute and ask any questions, or are there any other questions in the chat or in the audience?
Yeah.
Yes, Felix, I see that you're unmuted. Felix Niabeni, are you there?
Sorry, my mic.
We can hear you. We can hear you a bit. Maybe if you can try again, we'll see if we can make out your question. Okay, we're unfortunately unable to hear. I don't know if you're speaking. If you can put your question in the chat, then we'll be able to go from there and address it from there. We do have a question from Kamran, who says, "Thank you all for being a part of the Faith for Earth Youth Council. The Faith for Earth initiative is doing wonderful work in promoting the voices of faith actors." And he has two questions. So the first one is, how has the Faith for Earth Youth Council helped amplify your voice? And in addition to what you are already doing, what else do you think the Faith for Earth can do to enhance the faith youth voice to influence policy and action? And what advice would you give them to take youth engagement further? So we'll start off maybe with Leanne, if you can speak to those. How has the Faith for Earth Youth Council in particular amplified your voice, and what else can Faith for Earth do to amplify the voices of young people of faith around the world?
There are many capacity building opportunities at the Faith for Earth that helps me amplify my voice. It gives me a platform through which I can share my thoughts and also uh, share it with all the other council members. So there's a synergy created. I think synergy is very powerful. When we work in singularity, there's a drain out that happens. But I know when I am drained out, I can receive ideas and suggestions and feedback from other members. In this way, and the ball keeps rolling. So this is what I
Mm.
think. Yeah.
And what would you recommend for other what the council can do more to amplify the voices of young people even more? And is there any advice you have for young people seeking more engagement in this space?
Yes, I think mentorship programs are something we need to look into, but we need to focus on sector-based mentorship programs. Someone coming from an electrical engineering background, he or she, how can he or she work towards a green job? So these practical steps would really direct young people towards green jobs and the green economy.
Thank you so much. Tiffany.
Hi, thank you very much. I think as a faith-based organization, especially a youth, it's very important to have that community and that interfaith collaboration. So you know that it's not your faith that's doing it, but every faith around the world is doing the same thing. And that community that is built up is very powerful in the sense that we are able to share ideas. We're about to bounce ideas around and actually learn deeper about our own faiths and other faiths as well. Because when we reflect on our own faiths through the actions and through the activities we do with other faiths, it gives that deeper engagement and that deeper understanding of our own scriptures. In terms of what we can do and what Faithful Earth can do is, I think, bringing a lot of the international outputs into the local area, and localization is very important. So what activities and what events we can bring the conversations and discussions into a regional or a local context and encourage faiths in our own congregations and our own communities to act, because we there's a lot of talk that's going around, but how can we support each other? So for example, some organizations may be smaller, some may have technical skills that we can offer to each other so that we can get work that is done on the local level, and also bringing together youth that are feeling slightly, I guess, isolated from other people. So, for example, we have an international youth leadership program. It's called IYLP. And that leadership program, actually, you can be from anywhere in the world. You apply, and then we put you together in a team that you can work with, to be able to, make sure that your voice or your project gets off the ground.
Fantastic. Halak, I'll call on you next, but if Samson and Felix could please type your questions in the chat, that would be fantastic, as it doesn't seem like we're able to hear you.
Can I be able to talk?
Sorry, who's this?
This is Samson.
Oh, yes. Okay, you've been able to unmute. Yes, please do ask your question, and then we'll come to Halak in a second. Please, Samson.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Samson. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. And I'd like to echo the word of Flynn Dusa, where he mainly based his opinion on the marginalized community. It is very important that when you bring the marginalized community to the path, so that they can be at the same level with the developed one, in that aspect, the voice of the faith community will be heard. Secondly, what we have noticed here in Kenya, probably almost 80% of the institute, like schools, hospital, churches, are being owned by faith organization community, which is something good. When we create more of these schools, hospital, and churches so that it can benefit the community, then the voice of the faith community will be heard to the next level. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Samson. Halak, I'm wondering if you could speak on that a little bit in relation to what you were about to say. Is how do you involve marginalized communities within the activities that you do in your work?
So that's very beautifully put, and I love the local flavor of everything that you mentioned, Samson. So again, I think I'll just tie it up with the Faith for Earth. What does it do for you? So I think Faith for Earth makes a local thing global. It takes anything local to the global level, makes it global, packages it in a way that you get inspired, you feel that your ideas are possible. So, coming back to how faith based organizations can help bring about a change, when we started with the field program, and we saw that there's a lot of schools wanting to adopt it, but they're afraid to call it like a Jain program, or they're afraid to associate it with a faith-based community. We took a very neutral approach of conducting a first-hand workshop, just a 2-hour workshop with them on environmental awareness, but first with the teachers, the ones who are the trainers. And that's when they realize that, oh, these simple things of planting are missed in our generation. That's when they realize the importance of reverse engineering their own beliefs. And that's when they come up and say that, okay, we would like that our children should do it right from this age or this starting point. So that's how we began. And of course, we took our own universities and institutes as the model campuses for where we show integrated eco-friendly lifestyles in every aspect of a student's daily life. But more than that, we have to go down to every single local school and look at how they can adopt what you are here to propagate and preach. Because it's not necessary that they take everything from what you have to say. They will take what presses them the most, what pushes their buttons the most, what is the most challenging for them. It can be water for somebody, it can be plastic pollution for somebody, it can be mere an industry next nearby because of which they find difficulty in breathing, for which they want to put hedgerows and trees that take in all the carbon dioxide. So again, it's going to be super customized and local, but what ties all this together is the Faith for Earth team, which helps it get global, and you get inspired to another level, and you realize that every single faith around the world is trying to do similar actions for saving the environment and nature, irrespective of the differences in their scriptures and the differences of their holy religious lands. That's when you realize that humanity is above everything, and the one umbrella term that is actually helping humanity survive is nature and environment. So, getting back to you, Samson, I think what Kenya is doing is amazing. It's just that it needs these multiple small little case studies to come up, burst as popcorn, and make a delicious breakfast for the world, because we all are waiting to hear the success stories out there and implement it in our own local context. Thanks.
Thank you, Halak. Yeah, and that speaks well to Emmanuel's question, which he has put in the chat. The first one being, considering the diverse religious backgrounds within interfaith programs, how can you ensure that skills development initiatives are inclusive and respectful of different faiths, but also maintain a cohesive approach to peace and stability? Gresham, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that, if you can speak to how you're able to keep things local and yet still respectful of and celebratory of the various faiths represented and the similarities and differences between them in this space.
Um, yeah, so yeah, first of all, thanks for the question. And when we are like considering the people from diverse background and bring together them, so as I mentioned earlier, like when I started Eco Peace Teen Cafe, I was thinking like how can I make it the most safer space and also the inclusive space for everyone to come together and have dialogue. So the word dialogue itself says like how can we communicate with each other and how can we have a very meaning and open conversation. So uh, so I create like let's use the example of Eco Peace Teen Cafe. So I create that platform and invite everyone and make sure that everyone has a voice and they get the right opportunity to speak up and share their thoughts. And also like when we come together, we realize and we accept that everyone are skilled and everyone has some wisdom, like has wisdom to share with others. So we create a very safe space, like bringing that ground rules and bringing that opportunity to share from their experiences. So so our platforms, like for the interfaith platforms, we create that kind of opportunities to learn from each other and create like more opportunities. And that's why I said like we are focusing on collaboration than competition, like how we can support each other and upbring each one. So as Leanne said, like we need like more mentorship programs. So these mentorship programs can help each others. Like normally when we said like mentorship program, we may consider it like more intergenerational, but within ourselves we can create more mentorship opportunities to encourage everyone and help the marginalized communities. We can even use the online platform as a way to connect each other. Like there is no distance, like when we have these online opportunities. So yeah, that's where we can ensure that we are creating inclusive. Still, it's a questionable thing. Like when we try to connect global people, like still we lose some of them because of the low network and high rate of the data charges. So still it's questionable. Like still it's hard to make it inclusive, but we will try our best to make it inclusive space for everyone.
Mm.
I think I answered the
Yeah,
question.
thank you. No, that's fantastic. Some great advice on how to do that and how you've done that in your work. I think that's fantastic. Emmanuel had two other questions, and so I'm going to combine these and ask Tiffany and Leanne if you could answer these. The two questions are: what are the key challenges that young people of faith face in accessing skills development programs? And what strategies have you used in your work to overcome these challenges and engage a wider and broader constituency of young people seeking to be engaged in this space? I'll start with you, Tiffany.
In terms of challenges, I think definitely a lot of challenges is like you say, barriers for accessing. So what we try to do is to find local leaders first, local leaders, local schools. We work with them to identify youths and then also give the opportunity, open opportunity for youth to join the platform. And through that, we would then hold sessions which we discuss with the youth, what is the best way of engagement? How do we engage with your peers, your family, your friends? And through that process, we are able to build a two-way street, so a dialogue that continues, because it's not really what we want to do, but what the youth want to do. And I think that dialogue is a great way that we can identify the things they're interested in, what they want to do, and then support it from there. Definitely, I think youth faith plays a big part. Of course, different faith, as we say, could be not as inclusive. So, what do we do in order to kind of bridge that gap? Is a lot of these skills are not faith specific. A lot of these skills are everybody on this planet, everything that you need on this planet. So when we work with the youth, it is also being supporting their faith and their ideas and supporting their identity. I think that is very important. For example, indigenous communities, they have their own identity, their own way of relating to the earth. And how do we support that initiative of and how do we also take this with an open mind? So I think that's the way that we usually help with that. Leanne?
Yes, I'll answer. What strategies have you found most effective in engaging youth from diverse religious backgrounds in skill building activities that contribute to environmental sustainability and community resilience? I think the most important thing is how we communicate. So, instead of using faith-based language that is specific to a particular religion, we can focus on the theme and the work itself, and then that's the best way to get people from different religions come together. So I come from Mumbai, and Mumbai has a multi-religious population. So we are used to living with multi-religious groups, and we celebrate festivals together and many other programs together. But what I find important is there's a sensitivity in language when we communicate to people of other faiths. We don't focus on the scripture or the language that's used. For example, like we not focusing too much on biblical language, rather the idea and the concept that needs to be promoted. Even in our communications at Don Bosco Green Alliance, we are working towards keeping a balance between of promoting faith-based environmental action and keeping it open to all people of goodwill. So the other question that you said from your collective experiences, the key challenges that young people of faith face in accessing skills. So that there isn't enough of opportunities in terms of courses and training programs in the green economy. So that's the biggest barrier, and then of course the financial constraints come along. uh, this is what I think. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Leon. I think you're both right to point out how financial barriers and access barriers are there, but that's reinforces the importance of networks and mentoring and developing the skills necessary to break through those barriers and to form a more cohesive and strong alliance as we combat the triple planetary crisis through the lens, and we have how we approach that through the lens of our faith. Are there any other questions? I'm aware the time is running short, so last call for questions. And if not, doesn't look like there is. I will say thank you very, very much for joining us today. Do stay tuned for further updates from the Faith for Earth Youth Council. We are using this webinar to launch a new initiative featuring more information about the work being done by our fantastic members. As we emphasized in this webinar, the importance of networking and the importance of coming together and developing skills through mentorship has never been more important. So please do get in touch. Do let us know how we can support and where we can find partnerships, and look forward to staying in touch. And do remember that as we go forward on this World Youth Skills Day, that the importance of developing these skills is still there. So thank you very much. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much, guys. Happy World Youth Skills Day.
Thank you.
Adios.